My now ex-wife, 38, and I, 38 male, were together for 20 years. The two of us got together in our first year of college and were inseparable since the moment we started dating. High school and college sweethearts don't always end up in a long-term relationship, but I was confident that if anyone could make it work, it would be the two of us. After our college graduation, I popped the question and we got married soon after. Fast forward 16 years and 3 children later, our life was something that I would say was crafted out of a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect, but no relationship was perfect. It was a little while after our 20th anniversary when I started to notice odd things happening with my then wife. She was acting as you typically expect cheaters to act. Sneaky, touchy, mean, and just uninterested in our marriage and family. We had been married for a long time, so slumps could happen. I tried to brush it off and just give it time. One time I went so far as to suggest counseling, but this was shut down as soon as I suggested it. She claimed we didn't need therapy because everything was fine. So I went online and started searching for reasons she might be like this. A lot of what I found suggested that she might be cheating. I didn't want to believe it, but it would explain all of the strange behavior. One night after we went to bed, I grabbed her phone from her nightstand and broke into it. My wife was a heavy sleeper, so she didn't even twitch. I figured out her password on the second try before heading straight to the text messages. There were numerous text messages with this guy I knew as her longtime coworker. However, as far as I knew, they had never been close. They would have no reason to have so much contact with each other. This was suspicious, so I checked out the text messages between them. It was that night I discovered the affair between my wife and her older coworker. I never thought I'd have to worry about someone nearly 2 decades older than me who was not in shape and had a receding hairline. Yet here I was. I could not fathom what my wife saw in him, but there was no denying something had to be pulling her to him. Cheating was one of those deal breakers for me. As far as I was concerned, the marriage was over. That night I slept on the couch. When my wife confronted me the next morning for sleeping downstairs, I turned around and confronted her about the affair. She turned as white as a sheet. At first, she tried denying it until I showed her the phone I had broken into. The woman had the actual audacity to be angry about me invading her privacy. I told her it was worth invading her privacy for a little peace of mind. At first, my wife did seem to want to repair the relationship, but after it became clear I was going to go forward with a divorce, she decided it wasn't worth it. About a month after I filed for divorce, she moved out and started seeing the AP she was cheating on me with. The divorce wasn't a particularly nasty one. We were able to agree on custody, who would get what, etc. I think both of us just wanted it to be over with. The reason I wanted it over is because I wanted to be free and no longer tied down to her. While my now ex wanted it done so she could ride off into the sunset with her cork-returned AP, I kept myself on a need-to-know basis with my ex after that. The only time we communicated was about the divorce or our children. There were parenting apps you could use to communicate with the other parent, which kept things simple. Luckily, she didn't protest with us using that as our primary method of communicating. Our kids had a hard time with it, as any child would. I could only tell them so much about why the marriage ended and tried very much to keep it not only age-appropriate but also kid-friendly. As much as I disliked my ex, she was a good mother to our 3 children. This was probably one of her only redeeming qualities. Soon a year passed and our divorce was official. I focused on everything else in my life, my kids, job, friends, family, hobbies, etc. It did a good job of keeping me busy and not thinking about why my wife decided to blow up our marriage the way she did. The only logical explanation was that she was always a terrible person but didn't show it until then. I was honestly okay with that. My wife remained with the affair partner. It seemed to be working out until it wasn't, and when it blew up in her face, she came to me with tears in her eyes. The night it happened, she called me asking if I could have the kids again overnight even though it was her turn. I didn't mind because I love spending time with my kids and didn't have any plans either. So I said yes, but asked what was going on because I could hear that she had been crying. She told me that karma was a pain and had finally come for her. Her affair partner had cheated on her with someone who was a decade younger than my ex. This was discovered after she went through his phone while he was in the shower. I have no idea why she told me this. Maybe she thought I would feel some pity for her or in some bizarre world try to rekindle things with her again. The joke was on my ex because I had already been seeing someone for the past few months and I was crazy about them. She ended up asking for forgiveness again at the end of the conversation. I told her no. She hadn't earned that forgiveness even if she was feeling exactly what I felt when I discovered that she was cheating on me. Cue the wailing. I cut the call short, agreeing to take the kids for the weekend so she could gather herself and figure out what she wanted to do about this guy. It would be better for my kids not to be there for all that drama anyway. The most important thing was keeping them away from all of that crap to the best of my ability. It would be a lie if I didn't admit that hearing him go on and do the same thing to her only with a younger woman did make me feel a little better. I was always frustrated because my ex never seemed to understand why I was so hurt. Now she knew why, and when the shoe was on the other foot, it wasn't a very fun place to be. From what I know, the two of them are still together, but the trust is just gone. Honestly, that's the most hilarious thing I have ever heard because how could you have trust in a relationship that started as an affair? My ex got what was coming to her. I don't wish her any physical harm, of course, as she is the of my children, but some karmic retribution. I wish her all of that and more. If she ends up trying to complain to me again, I'm just going to cut her off before she has a chance to tell me anything. I don't want to know and don't care to know. The sooner my ex gets that through her head, the better off all of us will be. OP, as they say, what comes around goes around, and your ex-wife has certainly seen this come to fruition. Like some people say, she played around and found out. If she was so disillusioned in your relationship, then there were so many things she could have done. First, she could have tried to work it out, but if that wasn't possible, then ask for a divorce. I promise you, had you not decided to go through her phone that night, you wouldn't have found out about the affair either at all or for months, possibly years. She had her cake and wanted to eat it too. This is clear by how easily she gave up when you refused to budge from getting a divorce. There is no better gift for your ex than karma coming for her. It bulldozed its way into her life and kept tearing things apart until there was nothing left. Now let's get into our second story for today. I met my wife while I was working a job in my chosen field, but it was lower paying than I would have wanted. It wasn't too shocking because I was a dejected millennial who had grown up in this economy, so I was just happy to find something that could pay me. When I was getting coffee, I bumped into her and we got to talking. I know it sounds a little corny, but the two of us did hit it off right away. After talking in line for a bit, we exchanged numbers and then went out on a date. It was one of those whirlwind romances where everything happened all at once. I think maybe the fact that it happened so fast blinded me to any red flags there could have been in the beginning. After about a year, we were getting married. I proposed out of the blue. I don't know why I rushed it. Maybe it was the honeymoon phase, but we married in a small ceremony and she moved from her apartment to my modest one-room apartment. Now, I never had a lot of money. My family was lower middle class and so was my ex-wife's family, so it wasn't like the two of us didn't come from a similar environment. We did want to build a secure life, but if it didn't happen right away, that was fine. Things like this did take time after all. Get-rich-quick schemes were exactly that. They were schemes and didn't work. For the first year or two, things seemed good and it was like we were on the same page. Then my wife started to appear as if she were disillusioned with the life we were building. Suddenly, the apartment wasn't good enough. Nothing I did seemed to be good enough. I wasn't making the right amount of money. We couldn't do anything romantic because of the lack of income and just anything that cost money. Her biggest gripe was that I didn't earn enough money. Not her, me. She worked full-time as well, but since I was the husband, I should be the one who was providing more of the money to the relationship. It's a shame that I tried, but I was still deeply in love with this woman. I worked longer hours and put away as much money as I could. When this was happening, I was exhausted all the time. My wife would start complaining about how I never had any time with her, even though I was working overtime for her. The longer it went on, the less I wanted to do it anymore, so I realized something was going to have to change. I planned to talk with my wife and see if we could try to work things out. If I spoke with her, then certainly she would be able to see my point of view right. At least I thought this would be the case. So I decided to come home early one day to speak with her. However, when I got home and looked for my wife, I found her in our bed with some other guy. She screamed and I just turned and went into the kitchen. I heard movement from our bedroom followed by the slamming of the front door. My wife came in asking what I was doing here. My response was to ask her what she was doing with some other guy in our bed. She claimed it didn't mean anything, so I asked how long it had been going on. My wife admitted it was going on for the past 6 months, so for half a year she had been lying to me. I asked how they met, and she said they met on a social media site. Honestly, I didn't care about anything else she had to say after that. Once I knew she was cheating on me, it was like the wool had been pulled from over my eyes. I was able to see all the red flags I initially missed and knew there was only one step ahead of us we could take. It had to be a divorce. There was no other way. She changed her tune right away when it became clear I wouldn't change my mind and take her back. So once I said it was over, she packed her things and left. From there, we went forward with the divorce. My wife wanted to make it official so she could go be with her AP. Over time, I came to find out that the AP was quite rich, and once I found that out, the pieces started to fit into place. My wife, or now ex-wife, had always wanted to live a far better life than what I was able to provide right now. It was like she wanted to get one of those get-rich-quick schemes, and if you know anything about them, you will know that they do not work no matter how much you want them to. By getting involved with a rich guy, she did accomplish her goal, so I guess there was that, but it still didn't mean it would work out. Once the divorce was final, my ex moved in with the guy and started an official relationship with him. I tried my best to push her out of my mind and focus on rebuilding my life. The first step was to stop focusing on work so much. I could still work but also enjoy my life. By doing this, I was able to spend more attention on my hobbies and just the little things that I used to enjoy in life. A few months after the divorce, my ex-wife got into contact with me. She called me from one of her friend's phones since I blocked her main number. Once I answered, my ex started crying about how her new boyfriend had dumped her after 6 months. There went her backup plan, much to my amusement. My ex had always wanted something more in life, but she had never been willing to work hard for it. This was reality slapping her in the face, and I'm not going to lie, I was loving every moment of it. I don't care if it had been petty of me, because I had worked myself like a dog to make my wife happy, only to have it blow up in my face. It was clear my ex was contacting me to get some pity or something along those lines. At least it was the only thing I could think of. Whatever the reason, she was looking in the wrong place for it, and I told her as much. I do wonder if I reacted differently if she would have tried to ask if she could stay with me or give us another chance. Honestly, I had no idea, because as soon as I brushed her off, she started shouting and then hung up on me. If hanging up on me was supposed to hurt, then this was one of the best punishments I had ever received, because I didn't want to talk to her anymore anyway. Through the grapevine, I heard that my ex-wife showed up at the guy's house and tried to get him to take her back. It nearly ended up with her getting arrested in the process. My ex clearly couldn't let go of this guy because he was her one chance at getting rich quickly. Hey, if she wanted to waste time going after him, then so be it. Since I kicked her out, she was no longer my problem. Let her be her AP's problem, or whatever other guy she ends up stringing along. I've moved on in my life. The future may seem a little bit uncertain, but the one thing I am sure of is that my ex is not going to be a part of it under any circumstance. I have never seen a greater example of cruel irony than this situation right here. Your ex-wife wants that typical American dream without having to even work hard for it. This is truly lovable. Why she thought she would base her future on a man she had an affair with is beyond me. It is hilarious when you think about it. You handled it beautifully. From the moment you found out, you didn't let your emotions cloud your judgment and were quick to tell your wife it was over. This is commendable. Hopefully, it will also give hope to people who find themselves in the same situation. Keep moving forward and don't ever look back. If you do look back at your relationship, just realize that you dodged the bullet when it came to your ex. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact. I, 32 male, and my wife, 32 female, were huge animal lovers, and in our 8 years of being together, I thought it would keep our bond strong. In fact, this is what brought us together in the first place. I remember putting in my dating profile many moons ago about wanting to go on a date with someone who was at the park with my dog. She messaged me back and said that she wanted to do the same. Now, our relationship seemed so perfect from the start. We both got along super well. and our love for animals, especially my dog, brought us closer. She didn't have a dog herself, but instead, a cat. The cat and my dog grew to love each other when she moved in with me. I thought that she was the one and the most perfect person I could think of. I mean, come on, animal lover, and didn't want me to toss away my dog, my best friend. Seems so right. Naturally, I popped the question quickly. I imagined we could all have the animal house we wanted, where we got along swimmingly. While hiking, I asked her at the top of the mountain one day. She said yes, and I was over the moon. We planned the wedding quickly and had a small ceremony where we and a few family members got together. My dog was the ring bearer because he mattered so much, and neither of us knew anyone with sons to take this responsibility. From the moment I said, I do, I knew this life would be perfect, which is why I still don't understand why my biggest love is what caused my relationship's downfall. So here we were, happily married and with our animals 3 years into our relationship. Her cat, Spartacus, got along super well with Boney, my dog. Naturally, I figured that our family of 4 would be the idea, until she asked a question. This was about 5 years into our relationship. She said that we might get him a companion because Boney was getting older. I told her, nope, he doesn't need it. Boney never seemed to care about other animals. He just liked his treats and pets from me. I took him out every day to get exercise, and while Boney was still spry and happy, I could tell he was getting old. The vet warned me that his joints were beginning to wear down, and he might not be the energetic dog I've had for over 10 years. She started to ask again. I kept telling her no, that this is a huge responsibility. She worked as a graphic designer, sometimes working long hours, and she didn't have the time for a dog. We had many arguments about it until one day, and she showed me a freaking PowerPoint on why she should get a dog. Convinced, I finally gave in. However, when we went to the shelter, none of the dogs seemed to fit. They were friendly, sure, but she didn't see one that fit her. She told me that she wanted a golden double. Naturally, these dogs are laid back, and their temperaments are great. It's perfect for old Boney because he's not as active as he used to be, and if the dog wanted to wrestle and roughhouse, Spartacus still acted like a kitten despite being 8. She told me that there were reputable golden double breeders. I gave in, told her sure, and she did her research. She brought up this breeder, which was really close to our place, so I agreed. Why not? We could get the dog and then head back by the end of the day. At least she wasn't trekking me halfway across the country for a dog. We drove over there and then we met the breeder. His name was Alex. Now my wife is engaged in conversation. This was just the initial introduction stage. It bothered me, but I figured maybe I was overreacting. We agreed to return in about a month once the puppies were weaned from their mother. In that month, I saw a change in my wife. She grew distant, and when Boney and I went out to the park, she would stay behind. She told me it was work, but I have seen no major financial changes since then. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Naturally, I didn't want to cause trouble, so I kept mum. A month passed, and we went over there again. Now these two were incredibly friendly towards each other, to the point where I was being pushed out. This started to get me angry. I asked her if something was going on between Alex and her. They were close enough to each other, so naturally it could be possible. But nope, nothing. She told me he was just a nice guy helping her get her dog ready. We argued about it, and she told me I was being paranoid. I told her I didn't appreciate being left out of the decisions. We both needed space. Then it came time to adopt the little golden doodle. We paid the breeder fee, which is insane. I don't know why I thought spending over $1,000 on a dog was a good idea, and we took our tiny boy Moose home. Moose and Boney did well together, but I noticed she was not spending much time with the dog. I told her he needed some attention, and she brushed me off. Sometimes we got into fights over this. She would say to me she was going somewhere and leave me with the dogs. This was her responsibility. So naturally, I'm getting a little bit pissed at this point. One day after she left, I realized she didn't take her phone. Curiosity got the better of me, and like a bloodhound, I looked through it. There were texts between her and Alex, some of them flirty. He had a different name on her phone, and the spicy messages were hidden. The longer I read them, the angrier I got. So naturally, I had to do something about this. I wasn't going to let this bitch who conned me into buying a dog that was over $1,000 get away with this. She told Alex she wanted me to get the dog to help him so they could look together. I got in the car and I had Boney with me. We drove over to the ranch house where Alex was. The gate was open and I saw it light on. I went through the back and that's when I got an idea. I let Boney in first. They had the door open to the bedroom. There weren't any animals inside, so they didn't have to worry. Boney jumped on the bed and licked her face. I stepped inside, catching them in the act. My wife pulled away, and she accused me of being the bad guy stalking and spying. I confronted her about the cheating. The tears fell, crocodile tears, in my opinion. She asked if she could forgive me. She said that Alex and she hit it off well, and she didn't mean to hurt me. But of course, the damage was done. I told her not to come home. I changed the locks and called my lawyer shortly after that for the divorce proceedings. I told her that if she loved Alex so much, she should live with him. The proceedings went through quickly, and I got the house, the cars, and the golden double. While he was a handful, he became Boney's companion. It's a blessing in this otherwise messed up story. I blasted Alex's breeder business all over social media, posting that he's a cheater, a liar, and will steal wives. Naturally, the public stopped going to his place, and from what I saw, it closed. Good riddance. The dogs, Spartacus, and I are still in that house. She hasn't tried to contact me, and I think she either ran off with Alex or is alone. Neither of them is in my life anymore, and I do not want to find out. OP, what happened to you is terrible. To think that she acted like your perfect partner and then leaves the second someone better comes along is sick. As for the dogs, she got one to help Alex so she could run away with them, which is very selfish on her part. Anyways, I wish you all the best and hope you are able to recover from this. Now let's get into our second story for today. I, 30 male, and my wife, 31 female, have been together for over 12 years. We met when we were young and hit it off almost immediately. We were at a Halloween party, dressed in matching costumes without even planning it. I courted her, and within those 6 months we started dating, went steady, and then 2 years later, I asked her to marry me. I was 20 and she was 21. We got married 5 years later. Yes, it took a while, but between her getting pregnant and me trying to get my degree, things got crazy. School ate up so much of my time. She also went to hairdressing school and worked on the side as a beautician while raising our son. Time passed, and when it was time, we had a wedding. It was perfect. Flowers, extravagance, you name it, we had it. It was the best day of my life. When I think about her eyes, as she said I do, it brings joy to me. Now, though, it brings only heartache of what's been lost. After we got married, we moved into a nicer house. Work was tedious, and for both of us, it was hard to get time for each other. Tommy, my son, grew up and soon he needed us less. My wife and I started to have more free time. We took advantage of that and encouraged intimacy. However, something seemed wrong. I couldn't shake it, but I had a bad feeling about it. She accused me of paranoia plenty of times, but this time, it felt like there was an exterior force working, driving me crazy. It was a month from our 5-year anniversary. I wanted to do something special. I asked her where she wanted to go. She told me a cabin in the woods would be good. It sounded perfect. A chance for us to have some alone time and rekindle our relationship. At least, that's what I told myself. I thought it was just a lull in our relationship, but it became something more. We packed our stuff and Tommy got pizza money. He was 9 and I had a family member check on him, but he's the type of kid that's good with Fortnite and TikTok in front of him, even though I limit that when I'm at home. We drove out to the Smokies and over to our cabin. When we arrived, a man with large muscles and a trimmed beard greeted us. He's the owner of these cabins. When we got in there, I looked over at my wife. She did a full 180 from the woman I'd been with for the last decade. She was smiling, a little flirty, and kept asking for the guy's name. He just said it was Joe and nothing more. After we checked in, I asked her what that was about. She just said he was a nice guy. However, I didn't buy it. We had the entire weekend together. I thought maybe she would get out of it. Before we got to the car, she told me she left something inside. I signed and told her to go get it. She took a little longer than I expected, but I thought maybe she dropped it. When we got to the cabin, we unpacked. My wife seemed strained. I asked her if there was anything wrong. She said no, but she was feeling a bit sick. I told her going on a hike might help, but she said she wasn't feeling super great. Naturally, I wanted to stay behind. She told me I didn't have to, that she would be fine, and that she didn't want me to miss the sunset. I said fine, and I went up alone. I saw the sunset, but I missed my wife. When I got back, I saw a light turn off in one of the back rooms. It was strange, but I dismissed it. I came in, and my wife seemed happier. We cuddled around the fire and told stories. I thought things were great. The next day, we went hiking and saw more views, but my wife seemed a little distant. She kept checking her phone, even though we weren't in an area with service. I asked her what the problem was. She told me she was worried about Tommy. Yeah, she was worried about something, all right, just not him. That evening, my wife said she wanted to go out to the thermal baths they had. I offered to join her, but she said it was fine. We got into an argument, and finally, I asked her what was going on. She insisted nothing was, and that she just wanted to soak her aching muscles. She did have some physical problems, but I didn't think that she would soak for well over an hour. When she came back, I tried to have sex with her, but she was acting weird. Sure, it was all right, but she wasn't into it per se. Now, she always seemed to enjoy it until, of course, tonight. Okay, something was very wrong. I tried to ask her again, but she shut me out. The next day, she was sick. I wasn't in the mood to argue, but I wanted to hike. She told me to take pictures and see it without me. I told her that I wanted to go with her. We got into a heated argument to the point that I needed some space. I left the cabin. That was where I made my first mistake. I spent the rest of the day outside, but when I tried talking to my wife, telling her that I was sorry, I couldn't get a hold of her. This bothered me. Even when we had our worst arguments, she would always come back to me. I had a bad feeling in the pit of my gut about this. I got back early, not even bothering to let her know that I was coming back. When I got closer, I noticed the backlight was dimmed, and there were sounds. At first, I assumed it was a wild animal, but it wasn't. I opened the door very quietly and peered inside. What I saw was like a gut punch to the heart. There was my wife riding Joe. She looked happy, more than she ever did with me. I dropped my backpack and stared in shock. When she finally realized I was there, she crawled off him. She told me that she was sorry, and she couldn't get enough of him. She told him that he seduced her. I looked at Joe, asking him if it was true. Joe said no, that she was the one who made all the advances, and he even said that he didn't want to do this, but she forced herself on him. I was crushed. My wife, my love for over a decade, pushed me away for a random stranger. She begged me to take her back, but I told her no. She did this on our anniversary. What was she thinking, doing this sort of thing? I told her that we were over, took off the ring, and said that if she wanted out, she should have said something. That's when she spilled that everything in the relationship was my fault, gaslighting me into making it seem I was to blame for everything. Sure enough, most of the problems were caused by her. In a fury, I drove back, leaving her stranded with Joe at the cabin. If she wanted him so badly, then she could have him. Tommy was a little annoyed that I got back early since he couldn't play Fortnite all the time. In anger, I told him that Mom and Dad weren't together anymore. He asked what happened, and I told him he'd know when he was older. My lawyer helped, and I got the house, the cars, everything. Me and my wife share custody with our son. I don't know if Joe ended up marrying my wife, or if he was but another flame. I didn't care. Since then, I've been focusing on my job, raising Tommy, and preventing those same mistakes. I thought I married my one true love, but it turns out she was a monster in disguise. This is quite devastating. Anniversaries are supposed to be special. I know you've spent all that time trying to fix things but weren't able to. Her cheating on you is terrible on so many levels, especially on a weekend for you two to reconnect. I hope you're able to find love, and that things get better for you and Tommy. I hope the right one will come along and will communicate her issues instead of cheating on you. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact. Hey everyone, it's Gary here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's story is a good one, so grab a snack, relax, and take a listen to this. In today's story, Opie found out his wife cheated on him with a famous Olympian athlete 4 days after their 10-year anniversary. Now his wife is begging for mercy and claims she is very remorseful. Now let's get into today's story to find out what happened. My wife and I have endured a lot over the course of our marriage, most of which are things that were beyond our control. I have a successful career, but our earnings were taken from us by thieves twice in 5 years, and I have an immune disorder that gets me sick at the drop of a hat. So of course, when COVID came around, I almost died from it and spent over a year recovering from very bad symptoms that kept me in bed most days. Luckily, my career allowed me to work remotely from my bed, but I can't say I did my job well as COVID brain fog is a thing. Fast forward to April 2021. Ailment, brain fog, and financial difficulties all culminated in me recognizing I reached the point of emotional hopelessness. While not suicidal, I knew I needed professional help in a major way, so I voluntarily checked myself into a behavioral hospital for a few days. While the hospital itself was only marginally helpful, one therapist helped me to realize that my long-term ailments made me unintentionally selfish due to prolonged depression. I ugly cried when I had this epiphany as I realized what harm I brought to my wife's emotional well-being and to our marriage in general. I was a new man almost overnight in some respects. I was still quite emotionally fragile and recognized I had a long way to go to repair myself and regain my wife's confidence in me. I emerged from the hospital and my wife picked me up. She immediately noticed the 180 and said, "Wow, I have my husband back." I told her my COVID symptoms continued to abate and even my libido and desire for emotional and physical intimacy for her was also returning and looked forward to embracing us fully, and my wife was incredibly happy for me. Unfortunately, fate stepped in 4 days later as she sat at a cafe outdoors. A younger, fit, healthy, and charming athlete decided to strike up a conversation with her. My wife is, in a word, hot. I know I show bias because she's my wife, but she looks amazing. She is tall and very well proportioned, and her face is beautiful. The gentleman in question was a foreigner and a charmer. He was a bona fide sponsored professional in his sport and well known in his country. He visited our city to train for a few weeks. When she came home, she could not shut up about the guy, but I thought nothing of it. Crushes happen, and I am not the jealous type. The day after was the beginning of the bad times ahead. She didn't tell me they exchanged contact information and they met up. She came home from her daily dog walk, beaming. I knew immediately she met him. She tried to deny it, but she knows I am very astute when it comes to reading people in general. She pretty much told me that she was going to have this non-emotional, purely physical thing and said sex would not likely happen. As I was 5 days out of the mental hospital, I was in no position to fight her on this, either mentally or physically. As with the latter, I was still weak from fighting 14 months of COVID, even though the vaccine continued to allow me to improve steadily every day. With the lack of intimacy on my end, due to being sick for so long and considering he was only in town for another week before he returned to his home country, she was absolutely determined to have this affair. Because I lacked the means to fight her effectively, she viewed it as approval from me, which it was not. I essentially told her that she should let me track her phone at all times for her safety. She would let me know if they were intimate. She promised, but she lied on both counts, of course. Furthermore, she told me that while he was in town, I could not hug her, touch her, kiss her, or make any intimate overtures towards her. I told her that I was afraid she was lying to me and that she was falling for him. I asked her to promise me I was not losing her. Remember, I was fresh out of a mental hospital due to hopelessness, and she said she could not promise that to me. She took him to our favorite restaurant, a very romantic place. They made love in a park that night, even though she told me they had only kissed. The next morning, she grew livid when I asked her again how far they went. Adults don't go into a closed park at night to kiss, and insisted I was being paranoid. She checked herself into the swankiest hotel in our city because she needed time to herself, and tried to convince me that she was not doing so in order to see him. She stayed for 2 nights. At the end of the second night, he showed up. She had the nerve to text me that he came to the hotel and that they had mediocre sex. Then he left. She met him one final time the next morning at a cafe. as he was leaving the next day. She decided to go all out and proclaim she had fallen for him. Here's where it gets funny and sad. The man was a player in every sense of the word. He was shagging multiple women while in town, trying to juggle them all, including my wife. At no time did he reciprocate any words of affection or emotional attraction to my spouse. He was a 100% pure alpha male player, treated her horribly, spent most of their time together talking about himself, his training, and even that he went to a strip joint with members of a professional NFL team, which pissed her off but also made him even more attractive to her, of course. So she came home, fully expecting me to light her up, and I did. She said she did it. It's over. She had no emotional feelings for him and said it was my decision as to whether or not I wanted to stay with her afterwards. She said she did it as a means to regain her self-confidence, something I tried to do for years before I got sick to no avail. I'm a pretty smart cookie and really, really good from a technical perspective. I knew from the outset she would lie, omit, and follow the cheating wife's playbook, and did it to the letter, including gaslighting me on a number of occasions. Let's say that I had the means to listen in on their conversations in real time and recorded it. She knew I had the capability, but she chose to blatantly disregard it and pressed on with the affair. Of course, she even offered to let me go and screw someone to make me feel better, if that's what I wanted to do. So stupid. So typical of a response. Every lie she told, I called her out on. I presented the evidence. She was devastated when she knew she was fully caught. I had just about everything. Of course, she tried the I can't remember crap. She tried to downplay their sexual encounters. I knew about both. I knew she told him she fell for him, as again I was able to listen in real time and record the same. I gave her the transcripts. So where are we now? Now she is aware of how much she hurt me. She's doing everything and anything to make it right. But there is nothing she can do to regain my trust. And she knows that as well. She says she is willing to take my anger and my indifference for the rest of our lives. If it means that I may see through her actions that she is more than sorry for what she did to me. I think she is truly remorseful. She admits that if he stayed in town longer, she would have continued to see him, knowing full well that it would have completely ruined any chance we had to reconcile. She's blocked him. I have access to all of her devices. I know where she goes at all times. She says she will let me do this until the end of time. What she doesn't understand is that she has forever changed me. I was never a jealous man. I am not an alpha. I never tried to be, but I am confident in who I am as a man, and I've never had problems with the ladies. I've had 100 opportunities to stray due to women's advances towards me, and I never considered infidelity. The first time it happens to her, she was a bit heavy prior to how she looks now. She lets herself get shagged, and all because he was so good-looking and fit and confident. He played her like a fiddle. Why am I not filing for divorce immediately? Because prior to her idiotic endeavor into wayward wifeville, she bent over backwards when I had COVID for 14 months. She kept me on this planet. To say what she did was over and above to keep me on Earth would be an understatement. I know she loves me. I know why she betrayed me. She tried to blame it on stress and lack of confidence, but in truth, it was simply because a guy like that, for the first time in her life, wanted to screw her. And he said all the right things about her looks. He got her to say sexual things she would never otherwise say. She has admitted to everyone, from her friends to her parents, what she did, and that she will spend the rest of her life trying to make it up to me. And she knows I don't trust her, and may still decide to leave her. Right now, it's 50-50 about whether I will call it quits. I have a lawyer. I have papers written up and ready to be delivered if she messes up even once with me. Update. Here's some more info on her affair partner. The guy is on his way out as a pro sports guy, as he's in his late 30s. He still competes and travels internationally with his country's Olympic team. He has a side gig where he uses his charm and his story about his accomplishments to woo beautiful, sophisticated, wealthy married women to get into the sack with him. As I am a cybersecurity guy with an additional talent for looking into anyone's life, as I see fit, I found out very quickly that he owns a sex site along with his brother. He clandestinely records women he conquers, whether in their own homes, hotel rooms, etc. His MO is that he wants to listen to music from his smartphone, when in actuality he's using it to record videos. Update number 2. There are some more things I need to clarify. While I don't want to do the homework for those of you who say COVID doesn't last for 14 months or the vaccine doesn't cure COVID, you're right on both accounts to a point. There exists a group of people, roughly 20% of those who contract COVID-19 and are symptomatic, who experience one or more moderate to severe symptoms beyond 60 to 90 days. Many of us who contracted the virus early in mid-2020 seem to experience the long haul or symptoms that last well over a year. Look it up. As for the vaccine curing me, you're right, it didn't. Also, I see that some of you are calling me a simp for staying with her. I am a Sigma male. I am confident, charming, good-looking when not sick, intelligent, and exude self-confidence. I suppose it's a difficult thing for those who don't suffer long-term ailment, especially an ailment that completely takes away one's libido for over a year, to process that I had no desire and I was impotent due to COVID and occasionally due to my immune system prior to COVID-19, which affected our relationship for certain. That does not make me a simp. I have seen what women will do when they are infatuated and have the opportunity to cheat. They will do just that, and my wife was no exception. Of course I told her no. Of course I told her what kind of a person she was, shallow, narcissistic, etc., for what she was determined to do. She initially denied anything was going on. But I knew better and called her out. But my body and spirit were weak. I was like, fine, you want to do this and potentially wreck us? At least let me know where you are at all times because you don't know this man. Yes, I know he is famous in his country and he has an image to protect. But please don't be intimate with him. If you decide to go that route, wear protection for yourself. I don't plan on having any intimate relations with you should you go that route, just so you know. Of course she agreed to all terms and broke every rule because she was being a typical defiant female cheater, and I was an impediment to her desire to have the affair. Also, I have divorce papers ready for my lawyer to pull the trigger, but there are some issues. My state is no fault, so her infidelity and my evidence concerning it means nothing. She doesn't work. I have always made excellent money so that she could be the artist and socialite she wanted to be. She's highly educated, very intelligent, and very talented artistically, and she spends most of her time volunteering for many worthy causes for others less fortunate. But what that means for me is that should I divorce her, I'd likely have to pay alimony in an amount equivalent to her lifestyle. Our current financial difficulties stem only from identity theft because as a cybersecurity guy, I pissed off a few hackers who were well-funded and represented other countries. I still make good money. We are crawling out of the hole, but I'll be damned if I divorce her right now as she'll be the one who benefits, and I'll still be okay and have a decent living wage. But paying her alimony after she screwed me over this hard, all because the state doesn't care about infidelity? This is reason number 2 why I haven't pulled the trigger. Wow, OP, I don't even know where to start. There's so much to unpack here. From my understanding, the reasons you are planning on staying with her are because you believe this was a slight hiccup she had because for the first time in her life, she got the validation she needed from a guy who was perfect in her eyes. The second reason you stated is that you can't afford a divorce right now due to the hacker situation. Here's what I think you need to do. If you can't divorce her right now, then your next option should be to at least separate from her so that you can have some space to clear your head. It would be nice to that she just had an itch that needed to be scratched and that it won't happen again, but the likelihood that another man could get into her head and into her pants by just paying attention to her and complimenting her on her looks seems way too prevalent. And what if he comes back to town? You aren't entirely sure what she told him about herself, and he may have the resources to find her. Unless she has learned the hard lesson that she got played, she and you are in for more heartache. And if she is okay with being humped by a stud because she is getting her jollies out of it, she will do it again. Only if she is disgusted by being used and knowing she was a throwaway will there be any chance on her end of it never happening again. But you won't know that until a similar situation arises, and she either shuts it down or falls for it again. Do you really want to take that risk, OP? I also recommend that you get into counseling so you can learn more on how to deal with this situation. Good luck. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's story. If there's a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care. My wife and I had been married for 6 years when everything went down the drain. I have my own business and I hired a marketing firm to help me. I scheduled a meeting and I didn't know who was going to be showing up for it. I was sitting in my office and one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen walked in. I knew right away that I needed to date her. I asked her out, but she told me that her company had a strict policy about dating clients. I asked her out a second time I saw her too. I figured if she said no again, I would leave it alone. She did, so I was disappointed. A few days later, I got an email from the firm telling me that my account was being transferred to another representative at the agency. I felt horrible. I thought that I did something to offend the other rep, but shortly after I got a call from her. She told me that she had been really interested in going out with me, so she swapped accounts with a coworker. We went out to dinner, and a year and a half later she was my wife. I genuinely thought I was the luckiest man on the planet. She was smart, funny, and so beautiful. She was everything a man could want and wife and more. Early on in the relationship, we discussed our past relationships. I told her all about the women that I dated in the past, even some of the casual hookups. I had to be as transparent as possible. She told me that she had one long-term boyfriend and a couple of situationships aside from that. But she didn't tell me that one of those situationships was a friends with benefits situation with one of her coworkers. Had she told me that, I would have been a little less receptive to it. Looking back, it definitely seems like she was withholding a lot of information about it from me. I only found out about him when I found out she was cheating on me with him. Everything was normal for the first few years of our relationship. I trusted her with my life, and the idea of her cheating on me never crossed my mind. Both of us worked full-time, and with my business I was putting in about 80 hours a week. I wish that I had more time to spend with her instead of working, but things with the business were rocky, and I needed to tend to them. There were a lot of nights when I was coming home late in the evening. By the time I got back, my wife would already be asleep in bed. I was gone so much that it was difficult for me to notice the changes happening with her. After several months of working myself to the bone, things finally started calming down with my business, and I was able to take on a more normal schedule. I got my hours down to about 40 to 50 a week, and I was finally able to spend more time with my wife. Unfortunately, I hadn't realized that she was taking on extra projects at work. In my newfound spare time, I wanted to go on dates with her and surprise her with things, but she told me that she couldn't because she had meetings and things to attend in the evening. One day she didn't tell me in the morning that she had anything scheduled later that evening, so I took it upon myself to schedule a surprise date for us. I figured I would have everything ready to go when she got in, so all she would have to do was change her clothes and we would head off to a nice restaurant in town. I texted her about halfway through the day and gave her a little hint about what I had planned. She replied about an hour later telling me that she thought it was a sweet gesture, but she had a surprise meeting that she was going to be in during the dinner reservation. It did strike me as a little strange that she had a surprise meeting. Her business was pretty well managed, and they didn't tend to have a lot of surprises come up. I canceled the reservation and told her that we would do it another time. She got home around 7:00 p.m. and went right to the shower. We both worked in physical offices outside of the house, but we had a spare bedroom that we converted into an office space so we could work from home. The following morning, my wife had a dentist checkup around 10 o'clock, so she spent the first 2 hours of work in the office. When she left for the dentist, she didn't turn her computer off. I hadn't even noticed until I heard chiming coming from her desktop. It didn't bother me at first, but it started to draw my attention away from my work, so I decided to turn off her computer. I saw the messages popping up on the corner of the screen from a Slack channel. There were also messages from a coworker whom I'll call Terry about last night. I assumed it was the meeting that they were talking about right away, but a few messages in I realized he was talking about something else. It seemed like my wife lied to me about the meeting and was really spending time with Terry. That immediately caught my attention, and I looked through their messages in the Slack channel to see what was going on. It was pretty clear that they were having an affair, and they were using the meetings as an excuse to be together. They were coworkers, so a lot of their messages were about work, but there was a switch in the messages where everything became very suggestive. They weren't being overtly sexual, but they were sending a lot of winky emojis and things like that. I looked Terry up online and I found him pretty easily. He was giving the facade of being a perfect American family man. He had a wife and 2 kids, a great job, and a beautiful home. On top of that, he was cheating on his family with my wife. I did as much digging on the Slack channel as I could, then I checked her email. There I saw exchanges that were a lot more graphic with pictures and videos of the 2 of them together. I was completely shocked by what I saw, even more so when I realized that my wife was the one who initiated everything. She sent him an email where she suggested that they get together again. She heard him talking to another coworker about an argument he was having with his wife, and she jumped on the opportunity to turn his head. She told him that she was feeling neglected in her relationship and she needed to have that physical connection with someone. He was all for it. Through the beginning exchanges, I learned all about their past and how they had an FB situation going on before my wife met me. I compared the timeline that I put together from their messages to Terry's relationship with his wife and figured out that he was cheating on his wife with mine the entire time they'd been together. I felt sick to my stomach. I thought I knew my wife, but it was clear that I didn't. I was disgusted knowing that she would sleep with a married man to begin with, then cheat on me with him again years later. There was no way that I was going to be able to stay with her after what I found. I was going to divorce her and I was going to make her regret every decision that she made, but before doing that I wanted to get back at her. Her office was having an annual party to celebrate the company's anniversary in a few weeks. It was something they did every year and spouses were invited to attend. They had a small award ceremony to offer a meaningless trophy and a small bonus to certain employees who had gone above and beyond. I knew that my wife was going to be getting one of those. She had been instrumental in landing a major client for the company, and she was going to be rewarded for that. However, I knew that she was sleeping with another employee in the office after hours, so I didn't think they would want to reward her for that. I played everything cool and pretended like I didn't know it was happening while we waited for the party. She tried to tell me that I didn't need to go when it got closer to the time, but I insisted on going to support her. I think it was clear that she didn't want me to be around Terry. The day finally came and I was ready for what I was going to do. I knew a lot of her coworkers and I mingled with them during the first part of the party. When the awards part came, I stood there and clapped just as everyone else did. My wife stood up and thanked their boss for giving her the award that he did. Once that was all over, I motioned to give a toast to everyone. Everybody knew that my wife won an award, so they probably thought I was going to give some mushy speech about how proud I was of her. Instead, I congratulated my wife on the award and told her that it would probably be the last one she got from the company. Then I added the affair she was having with Terry and told everybody in the room that I had evidence and pictures of her in the office with him. There was a ruckus around me as I elaborated on what happened. Terry's wife was practically begging him to tell her that it wasn't true. He was just as shocked as my wife was, I told her. The security guards at the office actually ended up escorting me out of the building. My wife wasn't far behind me because she stormed out to confront me about what I did. She told me that I humiliated her in front of everyone she worked with and that she was done with me because of it. I just laughed at her and told her that I had pretty much just ended things with her, so it didn't matter if she was done with me. Terry and his wife ran out after, and his wife came to me and asked me to clarify what I was talking about. I told her everything I knew and she slapped Terry on the face and went off. After that, I knew that rumor about their affair was going to spread to the office like wildfire. With so many people talking, they would have to go to HR about it and have some kind of conversation. On top of that, I emailed her boss all of the evidence that I had. During the divorce hearings, I found out that my wife lost her job because I told her boss about the affair. I only found out about that because she was trying to get alimony from me because of it. My divorce attorney made sure that didn't happen though. I ended up keeping everything in the end, and I sold the house to move into a smaller place since it was just me. I've just been focusing on my business and trying to make sure that it is thriving before doing anything else. I've been a little hesitant to try getting back out there with dating again because I feel completely betrayed by what my wife did. Though I'm hoping sometime in the future I'll be ready for it. OP, if she was feeling neglected, she should have gone to you and voiced that and figured out a way to work through it. It seems like you were very excited to be over that hump in your business to spend time with her. It's clear that you loved her and you would have done what you had to make her happy. It definitely seems like that was just an excuse to be with Terry. It's good that you called them both out for what they did, especially considering that Terry was cheating on his wife when they were initially together before you met your wife. He seems like a pretty sleazy guy, and it's good that they're not together. Now let's get into our next story for today. I, 26 male, met my girlfriend, 24 female, through a dating app 3 years ago. We were only supposed to meet up as a quick hookup, but we found that we were very compatible with each other. We started casually seeing each other, and over time the relationship changed. We started getting to know more about each other and we ended up becoming official. When we started dating, we went out every weekend. We had a ton of friends and we would go out drinking with them and we were involved in a ton of drama. It was just normal fun stuff. About a year ago, I was going through some things with my mental health. As a result, I have a hard time being around a lot of people. I went from being the extroverted life of the party to being extremely reserved and anxious. I never wanted to impose any of my mental health issues on my girlfriend. I didn't think it was fair to her, so if she still wanted to go out with her friends and have a good time, I encouraged her to do it. I was fine staying back and hearing all about it when she returned. After a few months, my girlfriend started to behave differently toward me. I was already having a lot of issues, but I started to feel like I was a burden on her. I knew that she wanted somebody who could go on adventures and do exciting things, but that wasn't something that I had in me at the time. I was already feeling very vulnerable about everything, so the way she was behaving toward me made it all the worse. She was very cold and distant, and whenever I would bring up something, it seemed like she was completely disinterested in it. I would start talking about work or how a counseling session went, and she would pull up her phone and start scrolling on social media. It made me feel like I was invisible. Around that time, she started going out more often. Before I was going through what I was going through, we went out every weekend. Afterwards, she would stay home with me on Friday nights and go out on the occasional Saturday. Suddenly, she started disregarding me entirely and going out on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I tried to talk to her about it, but she reframed the entire situation to make it seem like I was the bad guy for wanting to spend time with her. The sad thing is, at the time I thought that was the case. I genuinely believed that I was being way too clingy and I was only damaging the relationship. So I shut my mouth after that. I never would have assumed that she would cheat on me, though. I thought we loved each other and I understood that she wasn't ready to give up a big part of her youth for me. When my girlfriend goes out to the club, she gets all dressed up for it. She wears a nice outfit and a full face of makeup and steals the show wherever she goes. One important thing to note is that my girlfriend is very diligent with her skincare, and wearing makeup any longer than she needs to is an absolute no-go. There have been times when we have been nearly blackout drunk, and she has made sure to wash her face before going to sleep. One weekend, one of my good friends was throwing a bachelor party. It was just going to be a bunch of us renting a cabin and spending some time hunting and fishing. It had been quite some time since I'd seen all of my friends together, so I decided to go. While I was away, my girlfriend did what she did every weekend. She and her friends got together and they went out. I didn't talk to her much over the weekend aside from checking in now and then telling her that I missed her. When I got home the following Sunday, I was worn out from the trip. I was around a lot of people and I was exhausted. I went right to the bed and plopped down to try and get some rest. I noticed that on her pillow there were a lot of makeup stains. First of all, she wouldn't sleep in makeup normally. Second of all, she had an expensive silk pillowcase that she was very careful with. I couldn't think of the reason why there would be makeup stains on it. The closer I looked at it, I could see that it looked like there was smudged lip gloss and things like that. The more I looked at it, I was able to paint a picture in my head about what happened. It raised some flags for me, thinking that it might have been something sex-related. Without getting into too much detail, I knew how she was in the bedroom, so it wasn't completely unfounded to think that was why there were makeup stains on the pillow. I didn't even want to think about her cheating on me. Unfortunately, I couldn't think of a better reason for the stains. However, it was not something that I could confront her about. I just thought that I needed to keep an eye on things to see if I caught any more signs. Her behavior continued, and suddenly my eyes were completely open to why she might have been as distant as she was. I knew that was a telltale sign of somebody having an affair, and I had been too blind and distracted to notice it. I started looking through her Instagram accounts, and I noticed that she was following a lot of people that I didn't know. Most of them were guys too. I clicked on some of their profiles and saw that they were the types of guys that my girlfriend would normally go for. They went out often, and a couple of them even went to the club that my girlfriend frequented and had pictures tagged there. It was entirely possible that my girlfriend ran into some of these guys at the club and exchanged information. At the first chance that I had, I took a quick peek at her phone to see if I could confirm my suspicions. Unfortunately, I did. There was ample evidence that she had been hooking up with several different guys that she met at nightclubs. I saw that one of them invited him to our apartment when I was going away for the bachelor party. She told him that they would have the entire place to themselves, and they went into explicit details about all the things they were going to do. They even exchanged pictures. In some of the messages with the different guys, I saw her telling them that she had a boyfriend. She told some of them after she slept with them. One of them was angry that she lied to him. However, most of the other guys didn't seem to care. One of them asked about why she was cheating, and she told him that she didn't think we were compatible anymore, but she was too afraid to break up with me because I had issues. I just found out she cheated on me, so that was bad enough, but hearing her reasoning behind it stung. I knew that what I was going through wasn't easy for her, but for her to use it as an excuse to cheat on me was cruel. One of our friends was having a birthday party at a local karaoke room, and I thought that a microphone and a spotlight would be the perfect time to tell everybody about my girlfriend. I RSVP'd, which I'm sure surprised a lot of people in her friend group. The day of the party finally came, and I signed up to perform a song toward the beginning of the party. When I got up there, instead of singing along to my song, I grabbed the mic and broke up with my girlfriend. She was shocked, but I think she was offended more than anything. She laughed at me and told me to get off the stage. I explained to everybody else in the room what I discovered and how she was only staying with me because of my issues. I could see the demeanor of a lot of the people in the room shifting when I said that. I think because of what I was going through, they had a lot of sympathy for me. I wasn't looking for that, but if it made them look at her like some big villain, then it was fine. My girlfriend ran up on the stage and started causing a scene in front of everybody, and eventually one of our friends got in the middle of us and took the mic. They brought me off the stage and took me off to the side to talk. My girlfriend came in and interrupted us. She was embarrassed about everything that I had just done. She said that everybody in the room was looking at her like she was a monster and that I had no right to go through her belongings. I just told her that she had been lying to me and cheating on me, and I didn't care. She explained that she was cheating on me because I wasn't the person she agreed to be with. I changed so much, and she didn't want to be with me in the state that I was in. She said that she was nervous about breaking up with me because I seemed to be so fragile, so instead she decided to cheat on me. The thing is, I can understand where she was coming from a little bit. However, she was so careless with her affair that it would have been impossible for me to ignore it forever. She didn't think through what she was doing. She was trying to frame it like she cheated on me to protect me, but I don't think that was the case. I told her that I would be moving out of the apartment, and I didn't give her any chance to try and talk to me about that. I got my stuff out of there the next day and stayed with a friend of mine until I found another place to live. That friend told me that pretty much everybody had been avoiding her because of what she did. They all thought she was awful and manipulative. People were calling her a narcissist, and I think it opened the floodgates for everybody who didn't like her to voice their own opinions about her. That was several years ago. I'm much happier now, and I'm glad that ended. If it hadn't, I thought I was going to marry her, and the entire situation would have been so much worse. I'm with a fantastic girl now, and I'm able to trust her. It took some time to get there, but I found the right person now. Opie, first of all, I really hope you are doing better now with your relationships alongside your mental health. I'm not sure exactly what you were going through, but it seemed to have taken quite a toll on your social life and relationship with your girlfriend. It's honestly disgraceful that she would try and pretend like cheating on you with the only option that she had. It definitely was not. Like you said, she was not even doing anything to hide her affairs, so you were bound to find out anyway. I guarantee you she didn't think about how you would react if you found out she was cheating on you. She didn't care about your mental health. She was just selfish. It's good that your friends have all come to realize who she really is. She showed her true colors when she cheated and then made up the excuses that she did. I don't think this post described her well enough to label her as a narcissist, but if all of her friends are calling her that, it's good that you got away. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me.